schedule if somebody could post that because I don't have it up. Wait, I do have it up. So, Nita Holland, I'll leave it to you.
Okay, hello guys. Thank you all for watching, and thank you Interjection for doing this, talking us through it, but mostly thank you Ryan for explaining this stuff. Yeah, we have got some questions from the chat. In the thread we made are not really, no, there are no questions at all, but I hope we get something more when we're talking through it. There was one asked not so long ago about why you didn't make mahouts or howdahs as India. What do you think about using those elephants? Do you only ship them, or do you also make them, or are camels better in every aspect?
That's a good question. I think so. If you asked me this question a couple months ago, I would have said just camels all the time, and I still stay pretty true to that. The only exception being the mahout, I think is very usable in certain situations. That would be the reason why it's good is because it's tanky. The reason why it's bad is because it's not very pop effective. It's not very cost effective, and just all around it's a weaker unit than the SOAR. But the thing is, all of India's units are kind of high attack, low HP, except for the elephants. So, like for example, against German Uhlans, I would think that a Mahout could be very useful, just because it kind of can soak up a lot of the Uhlans' damage while your Zams are in the back doing damage to them. So, yeah, in general, the reason I don't use elephants is because they're not very cost effective or pop effective. Um, but they have some niche uses, and I would also recommend the two Howda card, not or is it two Mahout card,
Yeah, the two
not the
mahout
three.
cards.
Yeah, the two, not the three. The three costs 1,000 food. That's a bit ridiculous, but the two only cost 250 food, and so they can make a nice surprise, kind of like your Rumi do.
Yeah, okay, I see. So you only make it in very specific situations and not for your standard army, really.
Correct.
Okay, well, we have got some questions here coming now in the chat. Maybe we should do them first.
Yep. Keep them
Um,
coming.
you think that when playing Japan, Kami 700 wood, 700 wood is better than Kami 700 wood and 4 fills? Um, I think he means 600 wood with that, because Japan doesn't have a 600,
Yeah, yeah.
700 wood shipment.
I got it. Yeah,
Yeah,
so I would say, I think in most games it's a 604 Vil, and the time that you do double 600 wood is when you need to have units. If you're under a lot of pressure, then it's better. So outside the mirror against a lot of civs, 600 wood twice is very good. You can use it to kind of make constant Yumi production while still shrine booming, and it really doesn't put you that far behind, considering that they're going all into rush you as well most of the time. So I would say double 600 is good against rushes, and 604 is good against more economic builds.
yeah, that makes sense, of course, because 600 wood you can make a lot of stuff with that, including Yumi, while 4 fills is more a bit for later games.
Yeah, and
Um,
one other thing, ideally you want to avoid sending 5 Yumi and 5 Ashi, so 600 wood would be way better actually to send than 5 Yumi or 5 Ashi if you can get away with it. Just another thing to think about.
yeah, of course, and you can always like make 5 Yumi from the 600 wood. Well, if you send 6 Yumi, of course, yeah, you can
Exactly.
revert it back to wood or something.
Yep, exactly.
Um, so in the game you showed, there were a few questions about the game you just showed us and explained. Why didn't you wall yourself? Like if it's a 3D game, you have to wall against some raids and him pushing in, right? Or
Yeah, that's true. I would have walled in the future. It's another thing that I should have done that I didn't. Um, I think I also in one of my previous explains talked about how I don't usually build walls until I get into a tournament situation. In general, it makes the games a lot more challenging, but also there's just not much you get out of practicing with walls usually. Specifically, that's the game where I played against Snow, where I did a whole bunch of walling once I had control of the game. So yeah, it would have been much better to place two. I could have walled off my entire economy when I had it in that pocket at the end of the game, which would have been quite good.
yeah, I see. Yeah, because of course in 3D it's everybody evolves, but most people in Supremacy are not really used to that, except of course your enemy here, Kinesi.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
but yeah, not everybody knows how to do that. Um, so what shifts are best to play against India? What do you find? What do you find the hardest matchup when you're playing India? Is it
Um,
still Iroquois or also a non-lame Civ?
yeah, I won't even talk about those two civs because I think nowadays most people aren't even playing them. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, but so I've been finding India to be quite weak lately. It seems like lots of people are coming up with answers to them. Germans do so well against them now. Japan honestly does quite well against India. Um, I guess British is one of the easier matchups I think now, just because you can always kind of starve them until they run out of hunts. I would say the two best civs to play against India right now are probably German and Japan are probably the two best civs.
Yeah, as you can see, Japan can still do very well against India. That showed in this game also. It took him how long? 40 minutes to
Yeah,
beat him. So
yeah.
that speaks for itself. And so, do you think China has any chance against India? And how strong do you think China is with the new porcelain tower? Because that's only discovered quite recently, right?
Yeah. So I think that build's been done before in the past, but it hasn't been done in a long time and not as refined as the way I've been doing it lately. The China Tower build's just really good. I think it beats India pretty easily as well. I didn't mention that one, but
Okay.
because I lost to like a major China who just didn't even do the tower as India. So I mean, imagine like a good player doing the tower too. I feel like you would just crush India with it.
Yeah, and how did you find out about the tower? Because you only did it quite recently, right? Or have you been working on that for a few years? Or how did you find it out?
I don't know if you can work on a tower build for a few years, hopefully faster than that, but yeah, so the tower used to be a variation. It was a variation on the fan patch as well. I think that's when I first started doing it was on the fan patch. I used it to differentiate in China mirrors. So, the other guy doesn't do that and you do, so you have an advantage. Um, and then when you build the tower and you look at the number and it says 4 per second, you're like, wow, I just aged up with 8 villagers. Like I don't know, like at that point, I just kind of realized how good it was again.
Yeah,
And the other thing is, most players don't have the best villager defense, I would say. It's one of the more challenging skills to get down. And so that's something that I actually enjoy doing the most in this game. And because I have good villager defense, the 8 skirms really weren't helping me that much. They wouldn't if I was going to stabilize, the 8 skirms weren't the reason. So I figured why not just go with 8 more villagers.
yeah, that makes sense, of course. Because 8 villas versus 8 arquebusiers, well, the arquebusiers only give a small advantage for a short time, and the villagers are, of course, good for the longer games.
Exactly.
Um, Yeah, and do you think India has a chance versus Sue because it's
Oh
been played
yeah, they
quite a
also
lot
don't.
in the last finals
That's a
and the
good
last
point. They
the
also
last
get crushed
tournament?
by Sue. I forgot about that.
So actually, India are not really that good if you consider like four very big civs can actually do well versus them, right?
Yeah, and I've been thinking that, ever since the tournament and thinking about how people have been playing against India, it just seems very hard for India. There's just not, I don't know, they're getting weaker every time I turn around, it seems, which is surprising to me because I used to think
Yeah.
they were one of the best. But
Yeah, still a lot of people think that, and yeah, they're still very strong. I feel, but yeah, a few of those shifts just crushed him. Um, so a very important, important popular question that was asked: who is the best player you have ever played against? Was that Blackstar or was it someone else?
Ooh, big question.
Hype.
yeah, I would say the best person I've ever played against was probably Grunt for sure. I learned a lot of things from playing against him. I actually played before WCG. I played him maybe 20 or 30 times in 1v1s, and I lost every single game. Like didn't win a single one. And I learned a lot of values on how to like win every game from like playing those games with him and like thinking about how he played. So I would say, I may be a bit biased because he was the person who was beating me a lot back then, but I would say he's
Yeah.
probably the best player I've ever played. There's a few other players, who are kind of reached that next level, who are always, great games to play. I would say that's like Samwise, Blackstar, recently has gotten to that level, which is awesome to see another one. There used to be people like Starsky and Nature Phoenix, a couple of guys there too. So,
Yeah, but of course in
Not Parfait.
oh, that's a good point. Parfait actually, he's very good on land, and he was very good. The thing is, his style was super aggressive. He would always just kind of he would always just make units and just go for it. Send a lot of unit shipments, that kind of thing.
All right, because he
But he
came.
was good. He was very
Yeah.
good. I would
He
say
got
for
to the
sure.
finals of the 2007 WCGs against Iron Grunt and lost. But yeah, that's just the name I wanted to mention. But back to Edie.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, of course. But Ryan also beat Grant in the finals because his BOs were not optimal back then. I've heard.
He actually
Um,
he actually copied my build order. So I beat him in the group stage with my late double racks build order, and then in the finals he did it against me. And if you look at the graphs, what while this is going on, maybe I'll show you the graph. Like it's like 2 days later, right? Like the finals are a
Oh
couple of
wow.
days later. I'll pull up the replay and get the graphs up so that way
That's
we
the
can see them.
funniest thing I've heard all day. He beat you with your build order.
No, I beat him. The only game
Oh,
he beat me
oh.
once on Patagonia using actually we just talked about this double 600 wood, which is a
Yeah.
very strong build on um, more aggressive maps. So
yeah.
while this is going on, I'm just running the replay.
All right.
Get this
Okay,
down.
go ahead.
What's the next question?
I have
Oh,
a
well,
question.
When
into
was the
that.
last time you've played against Grant?
the last time I played against him was probably WCG. Actually, that was the last time.
Okay.
Damn, that's a long time ago. Yeah, he
Uh,
may have played on some Smurfs, but nobody really knows that.
I have a question that
yeah.
sort of feeds into it. Do we know where Iron Brunt is, and perhaps Parfait and other players?
He has been playing in Age of Empires 2 for quite a long time, but he also quit that recently.
Mm.
And people say he's got a life now, but nobody really believes that.
He's got a life. What kind of a life is it
He
without
said,
AoE3 in it?
yeah, he said he was going to become a tax manager. So I don't
Wow.
know. I think that's an accountant or something like that, or tax professional.
Okay, well, do take your time with this. I'll be right back.
All right, next
Okay.
question.
Do you think Grenadiers are ever viable with, of course, British maybe?
The only time I've ever seen Grenadiers work was Musket Gren Nature Phoenix had a build where you send the Gren card, and it wasn't good. It was a troll build. My answer to this is no. I would sadly that's like got to be one of the few units you can't really make work. I just can't imagine a time where you could use them because they don't have like good surprise potential. They just don't have anything going for them.
Yeah, and they're
Uh,
very expensive. You need a 300 wood building, of course.
Yeah, I mean, I would say no. They could do well against Russia, but I think in general everything does well against Russia. So there may I think Yumiu may has a cool Gren build with British that does very well against Russia. But I mean, once again, I mean you could have just had way more muskets and just beat him that way too. I think.
Yeah, of course. Well, that's quite a good thing to know. Of course, Ryan, you have been back for maybe a year now to the game, and you took a break of a few years. Do you think you're better now than you were before then, or do you have more knowledge but less skills, or how do you think you are now?
I would say mechanically I'm not as good as I was just because I have to practice many more matchups and I don't have as much time. I would say I do know a lot more about the game than I used to, just because, I mean, over time you just go through the more patches you play on, the more perspective you have. And so, after having played on the RE patch and the fan patches more, you just you pick up more stuff over time.
Yeah, I see.
That's why I value things differently than other people do. Like if you've been on a patch where Spain's OP, you understand. You have a different feeling about Spain now than you do. Like I realize how weak they are now because of that.
Yeah, but that's quite interesting because there was a question about Spain. Why is Spain so much worse in TED versus Nilla? Because the only difference is really a few units, right?
I think the difference is the fast age up, the whole fast age up kind of craze, and the ability to do a Cav semi and have it do damage, right? So Cav kind of suck on vanilla. So if you do Cav semi, it just like they don't do very well as they should. The other thing that makes them way stronger is I think the XP bonus is slightly different. I can't confirm that, but I think that they don't get as much XP. The final thing is having less units in the shipments is a huge deal. Having 5 Lancers come out and then 4 is so much better than just having 5 Hussar come out.
Yeah, of course, because the Lancers with their great stats against infantry, together with pikemen who goes against cavalry, make great compositions. All right, and do you think you're still rusty now? Are you still improving, like in the last couple months, in terms of skill, or are you at your max level now?
I think I'm probably at my max level. I have like day-to-day rustiness, when I don't play every day kind
Yeah,
of thing. I'm not as good. But if you
everybody
watch,
has that.
yeah, if you watch like the games I played in the tournament, the best games I played were probably the games against Venny and Eric were probably the 2 best series, and Soldier as well. That was the time when I was like the most well prepared. Sadly I didn't have as much time as I wanted to prepare for the finals, but I mean those were still very good games too, really.
Yeah, those
I
games
felt the
were pretty
most in
close.
control. It's probably just because Black Star is a very good player, so it was a
Yeah,
bit more challenging.
yeah, there have been some questions about that also. Why have you lost against Black Star in the finals? And also, why aren't you in the current tournament? Could that be because you have lost last time?
People will always speculate. I haven't been playing that much. People may have noticed. I just have a lot going on right now, and between what I'm focusing on in my life and kind of running the website, I just don't have the time to play all these tournament games, unfortunately. I
Yeah,
mean, I'll probably be back at another point. I did say up front that I probably wasn't playing in the next one, and
Yeah, you did.
I kind of got baited into signing up for the first one, to be honest. And I was like, well, shoot, now I have to practice I was like practicing a lot, and I'm like, oh man, this is so much time that I just shouldn't be spending on Age of Empires, but I did. So
yeah, but it's
yeah.
still fun, of course.
Oh, I had a lot of fun. It was more the adult side of me saying I shouldn't be playing.
Yeah, because there have been some questions about your personal life also. Like, for example, how old are you and what do you do for a living? Like, what do you do in your normal, not Age of Empires time?
Yeah. So I guess that's a good question. So I'm 25. Actually, my birthday was June 29th, so I just turned 25.
Oh,
Um,
congrats.
right now Thank you. I'm working as a consultant with General Electric right now. So I do healthcare consulting. We go into hospitals and we kind of figure out how to make them work better. And
Oh,
then,
that's pretty cool.
but through doing that work, it's really rewarding because you can say that your work is going to help more people get into hospitals and get the care they need. So it's a pretty cool job.
Yeah, I see. Um,
Yeah.
okay, well, there were not a lot of questions about the personal stuff, so we go right back to this current tournament. What do you think are going to be the 2 finalists, or what is your top 3 players in the current tournament?
I would say Black Star and Samwise are the top 2, and then I'd say the rest of it's really kind of an up for grabs kind of situation. I mean, it just depends on how the brackets play out. And I think that that's what's really exciting about the game right now is that there's this huge group of people that are just all the same level, right? There's, like Ace, Soldier, Benny, all like a whole bunch of people that, on any given day could beat each other depending on how well prepared they are and how well they play. So I'm excited because of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. And you don't have a favorite between Black Star and Samwise?
I have an emotional favorite for Sam, and I think probably Black Star's the favorite to win. Just depending, I think it'll depend on how much Sam gets up to date with the meta, and
Yeah.
then even then they'll be great games. So
Obviously, you and Sam go quite back a long way, right?
yeah, we used to
Yeah.
play a lot of odds games with good speed and stuff, and just that was when Sam was starting to get good. It was exciting to see him go from being just not really a standout guy to being one of those guys everyone talks about. So it's cool.
Yeah, okay. And well, because you have been playing with Samwise for quite a long time now, in the recently period, but also before that on FanPatch and the standard Age of Empires. Do you think people were better or worse 6 years ago compared to today?
I think people are better in the sense that they're much more refined. but I think
In terms of build orders, you mean?
yeah, the builders are more refined and the styles are more refined in a lot of ways than they used to be.
Yeah.
You know, you can't. It's hard to just discover something nowadays that's just gonna blow someone out of the water in a game. And I do think though that a lot of the guys who used to play probably had more mechanical skill and could pick up and come back very quickly.
So what you're saying is that the game, as it's gone on, like the meta has become more and more sort of pristine. It's gotten better. What you can and can't do with civs has been like, and matchups have become tighter. You know, like people know what to do more. But back in the day, when perhaps the game was larger in terms of the amount of people playing, the players then perhaps more were stronger players, and if they had all this knowledge, then they'd be even better.
Yeah.
Yep,
Exactly.
exactly.
Well, okay, and you just said you were 25, and the game is gonna turn 10 years in a few months now. Did you really start playing when you were 15? And when did you really start playing the game? How was
I
it for
started
you?
playing Age of Empires 2 when I was 12 years old on MSN Gaming Zone. So
Wow.
at age 12, I was aspiring to get into and it's called Medieval Siege. I think they still have the lobby name. It was one of the non-rated lobbies. I was aspiring to get into the games that were for good noobs. I think it was called Rook, Good Rook, which meant good noob at the time. So that's when I started. I was like, trying to get to know people and learn that way. And I was playing team games and stuff back then,
Wow.
in Age of Empires 2. So that's when I started, yeah. And when Age of Empires 3 came out, I made the transition. It was PR 32 on vanilla when I started. My first home city is actually called underscore Ryan underscore, and it's British. So that was what I started with playing. And that civ is leveled up from level 1 all the way to what it is now. It's like 127.
Nicely done. Did you play Age Mythology? Did you make that game transition at all?
No, never played that game. My sister actually got it for me for my birthday, and I tried it when I was like, 13, 14, and I just didn't like it and went back to Age of Empires 2.
What? Ah,
Good
Age of
job.
Mythology. That was my game, and then I got found Age of Empires 3, and I never went back.
Yeah, it seems a lot more people from AOM moved on. AOC people stuck with AOC for sure.
Mm.
And how long did it take you before you knew like the whole game, before you were a solid player? Did you like play 40 hours a week, or did it take you years and years?
What's interesting is it comes down to attitude, right? So when I played Age of Empires 2, I was afraid. I had I've gone through all the problems that people go through, right? I had ladder anxiety at age 13, like, oh, I just hit 1600. I don't want to lose my 1600, you know? Like I went through ladder anxiety, played that. But then when I went to Age of Empires 3, I was PR 32, 35-ish, which is not that good really when people were PR 53 and 54. Um, but all of a sudden, there was a point. I mean, I call it like almost like a breakthrough moment or a turning point where all of a sudden, all the things you were struggling with have clicked, and now you're ready to kind of pick up the next set of things. And there was a period of time at like age 16 or 17 where I went from being like 2000-ish to 2400 and like PR 45. And it just comes down to like playing the game enough and also thinking about the game outside of the game. Really thinking about what you can do to be different rather than just doing the same thing every game.
Yeah,
Piroshiki, for example, we were talking about him earlier. He's a great example of how if you just do the same thing every game, you won't ever, you'll get stuck at some point.
yeah.
Piroshiki, for those of you who don't know, has played 15,000 games as the Spanish.
And done the same
Yes,
builds every game, and
the
they're
same
not good
build.
builds. They're not mechanically challenging. He's not pushing himself at all, and so he'll forever be Piroshiki FF.
Yeah, that,
Yeah,
Which
that's
but
is
one hell
fine,
of
right?
a
But I mean, if
on
he's
the
having
other
fun,
hand,
that's great, right? But I mean, if you're trying to improve, it's not the best path.
that's one hell of a refined Spain build, though.
yeah,
Yeah.
he built a whole legacy and a whole story around him. So that's pretty cool. Everybody knows the Piroshiki build by now, even though it sucks.
Yeah. Let me take a quick moment to pop back to that question about the graphs because I have them up now.
A
Let's
moment
see.
of silence for Piroshiki, please.
Yeah. So these are the graphs from the final game, and so the blue line's me, the red line's him, and the key moments are when the muskets are made and
I
when the
can't
wood
see them
stops. You
because you
should.
have the overlay.
I switched it.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So key moments here are the wood count. So check this out. Look at this. Literally within I gathered 51 more wood than him. 65 more wood I gathered than him. and that was a mistake. Like he gathered closer to the right number than I did. And this is like 2 days later. He just looked at the graphs and not the replay because you weren't allowed to. He looked at the graphs and was able to copy this build exactly. And another thing, you look at military population, he only got 6 muskets, I got 10 because of practice, but then here he is, 10 and 10, 10 and 10, 10, 10, 10, all the way up to here, and I have a slight lead. But I mean, the game was super close, and he copied my build exactly from what he knew. Late game, he didn't do the same things I did, so I got a bunch of upgrades and stuff in Fortress that he didn't, but that's because he never saw that, so he didn't know the H3 to copy. But
He couldn't copy that.
he was amazing he was just so amazing at seeing something once and recognizing that it's the best and then doing it right away. Like he
thought that this was the optimal thing. He didn't think he thought I have to do that. He didn't think, wait, I know I can do this to counter it. He just thought I have to do that.
Yeah, well, him and I share a similar philosophy, which is that I can do exactly what you can do and then just beat you because I'm better than you. And so you do that. But when you take that attitude towards the game, he just copied the strategy and executed it basically flawlessly. And he used my strategy to clean up the entire other half of the bracket after group stage. So that's why I think he's one of the best players I've ever played, or the best. We can hop back to other questions. No, because of how quickly he was able to do it and how impressive he was at recognizing what's the best and doing it super fast.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's really good.
I practiced that build for months.
You practiced it for months and he just did it. Oh,
He did it from looking at post-game graphs.
Yeah, exactly.
This also, incidentally, is why you shouldn't play against H2O in a mirror. If you can avoid it.
Yeah, the details are all thought through in the mirrors.
H2O thinks he's better than you, so he'll play a mirror against you, so he'll beat you.
Yeah, that's really smart actually. Okay, we're quickly moving on. What do you think of game modes like Deathmatch and 3D? Do they have a place in this game, competitively or otherwise? I do know you have played some 3D, or was it never really competitively?
Yeah, let's try to do maybe 1 or 2 more questions after this one, and then because we're pushing up on time, I think we're already a little bit over. But I'll answer this one. Yeah, so I've played all the game modes actually at different points in time. I played Deathmatch and Vanilla. I know about how Deathmatch works. Dutch and German being very good in Deathmatch. The German War Wagon spam thing, but it's not really as good as Dutch in my opinion. And a couple other people who got really good at Deathmatch who know how to play the other civilizations well there. Like I know about calling the Minutemen right when it starts, all laying down the houses, all that stuff. I also know about Treaty, so I played Treaty quite a bit. Played it with all the top Treaty guys on Andes. I really was only super good at Spain, but I can play all the other civs that don't involve livestock because I just can't be bothered to keep cycling the livestock like those guys do.
Yeah, that's really.
Props to them. It's actually amazing that they can handle cycling through building 20 sheep and 20 cows or whatever over and over again for the board and keep it well macro.
Yeah, it's really intense.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, I mean, to answer your question, I've played both the game modes extensively and at the highest levels of them. That's kind of where I form my view that Supremacy is the best game type for competitive play, just because of how quickly I was able to go from being good at Supremacy to being good at those game modes, and then the other players maybe take longer to transition the other way. So that's kind of how I formed that opinion.
Which do you think is the most interesting to play for yourself, but also from a viewer standpoint?
I think the most interesting to play and from a viewer standpoint is probably Supremacy, just because if once you get past age 1, the game's exciting, and even in age 1 it is too. If you know if the casters really understand the dynamics of age 1, the game's really thoughtful and strategic the whole way through.
Yeah.
And also just where the competition is ultimately where the most interesting games are going to come. So.
And I would agree that it is the most interesting to play and watch Supremacy all the way.
Yeah, I think most people would agree. But of course, the guy who asked this question, Comet K, also known as Black Thought, is a very well-known deathmatch player and 3D player.
And 3D player. Has a YouTube channel himself. Go ahead, ADL. Post his channel, actually.
Oh, okay. Well, we're a bit running out of time. I didn't know it would be this popular, but I think
you can keep going if you want. There's no rush on my side.
All right.
Well, but there is for Ryan maybe
Oh, yeah,
for
that's
the
true.
for the podcast.
We'll do one more question, then we'll go to the podcast because I'm gonna have to
Yeah.
pack and leave here. So.
But we can let him answer some questions offline, and we can just post them like as an interview maybe on the forums. So your questions won't be lost. I've saved them all, and they will be answered in the future. So don't worry, and you can keep questioning actually. Okay, last questions, a bit more strategic, in depth. How do you decide when to rush and when to boom and when to attack and when not to? Because it seems every time I try to boom I get rushed, and when I rush their eco is better and I lose.
That's a good question. I think it's hard to answer it as just a single question, right? Because it's very situational.
Yeah.
Let me try to think of some kind of general rules. Because I haven't really thought of general rules for this. I would say it depends. First of all, you got to look at the matchup, right? So there's certain timings and dynamics to the way the matchups work out. That the way you figure those out is by watching replays from top players. So you kind of watch when they attack, and you may not understand quite yet why Aztec is pressuring China while they're aging or something. You may not understand why, but you can kind of pick that up and just start trying it, and you'll get a feel for why by playing the games. The second thing I would say is it's not like a hard and fast thing, but when you've gained a significant advantage through your aggression and you have a large military and you have more military than they can deal with, you should be thinking, I'm going to boom now and continue to use the army at the same time, because you need to be confident to know that they won't be able to catch up with you, but also at the same time you want to be booming behind that. And that way you kind of like hedge your risk, right? Because if you've got a lot of military, they may even have a better economy behind that, but you know that you can put on the pressure and just boom behind it, and you'll never be behind that way.
Yes. Okay. Well, thank you for explaining that. Interjection. If you're here, we will invite Blackstar, I thought, for the podcast, so you can take over now. I want to thank you guys all for asking this. You can still post questions in the thread, because I won't be saving them in the chat anymore. But offline we can still answer questions for you guys and just type them out. So thank you both for answering and listening.
Leave the
and
stream up.
questioning.
Yes, and one comment, just the thing about the casters knowing how the game works, I would say that all the casters that we have casting for ESOC know exactly how the game works, and that's why I think the Supremacy games are so exciting to watch. I mean, those guys do a great job. And I guess my point was more that it's hard to see that Age 1 is exciting until you have someone really guide you through it and make it exciting for you. All right, thank you so much, guys. I'll be around for the podcast for part of it, and we'll be going offline for a second as interjection
All right.
switches.